My name is Kathy. I am 54 years old. Right now, I am sitting in a small hotel room at 3 in the morning. 6 hours ago, I was still in the house where I lived for 28 years. On my lap, there is a passport and a small suitcase. My husband is sleeping at home right now. He does not know that when he wakes up, he will only find a letter on the kitchen table. Before I tell you what happened, let me know where you are watching from. Please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Have you ever had to make a decision that changed your entire life in just one night? Let me take you back to the beginning so you can understand how I ended up here. I spent 25 years working as a nurse at a large hospital in Phoenix, Arizona. It was hard work, but I loved it. I loved helping people. I loved the feeling of making a difference in someone's life, even if it was just holding their hand during a difficult moment. Nursing was not just my job. It was my identity. I met Gerald when I was 26 years old. He was 30 at the time. He came to the hospital to visit a colleague who had been in a car accident. I was the nurse on duty that day. I remember him walking up to the nurse's station, tall and confident, wearing a nice suit. He smiled at me and asked for directions to his friend's room. Something about him caught my attention. Maybe it was the way he carried himself. Maybe it was the way he looked at me, like I was the only person in the room. He came back the next day, even though visiting hours were almost over. He said he wanted to thank me for being so helpful. Then he asked if I would like to get coffee with him sometime. We dated for 8 months before he proposed. Everything felt like a dream. Gerald had a good job at an insurance company. He made good money. He promised he would take care of me for the rest of my life. I felt protected. I felt cherished. I thought I was the luckiest woman in the world. Our wedding was simple but beautiful. My mother cried tears of joy. My sister Teresa, who was 24 at the time, was my maid of honor. She told me she had never seen me so happy, and I was happy. I truly believed I had found my forever. The first 5 years of our marriage were relatively good. We talked about having children, but Gerald always said he was not ready yet. Then years passed, and he said he would never be ready. I was disappointed, but I convinced myself that our life together was enough. I had my work, I had my husband, and I had a comfortable home. What more could I ask for? Looking back now, I can see the first signs that something was wrong. They were small, almost invisible. Gerald did not like it when I went out to dinner with my colleagues after a long shift. He said he wanted me to come home and spend time with him instead. At the time, I thought it was sweet. I thought he loved me so much that he could not stand to be apart from me. Gradually, Gerald started asking more questions about my day. Who did I talk to? Where did I go? What did I eat for lunch? At first, I found it endearing. I thought he was just interested in my life. I did not realize that every question was a thread, and slowly those threads were weaving a web around me. My friendship started to change. Gerald had opinions about everyone. Maggie, my best friend from the hospital, was too loud. Susan talked too much. Janet liked to go to bars, which Gerald thought was inappropriate for a married woman. One by one, my friends stopped calling because I always said no to their invitations. Only Maggie refused to give up on me. She kept reaching out, kept inviting me for coffee or lunch. Gerald made it clear that he did not like her. He never said I could not see her, not directly. He just made his disapproval known every time her name came up. My sister Teresa noticed that something was off. During one of our phone calls, she said I sounded different. She said I used to laugh more. I told her everything was fine. I told her I was just tired from work. I was not ready to admit even to myself that my perfect marriage was not so perfect after all. Looking back, I realized that the control did not come all at once. It was like boiling water. If you are in the pot from the beginning, you do not notice the temperature rising until it is too late. And I had been in that pot for 28 years. By the 15th year of our marriage, Gerald had established clear rules for our life together. I had to let him know if I was going to be more than 15 minutes late coming home from work. If I did not call, he would be upset. He would not yell. Gerald never yelled. Instead, he would become cold and distant, refusing to speak to me for hours or even days. That silence was worse than any shouting. Every week, Gerald checked the mileage on my car. He compared it to the distance between our home and the hospital. If the numbers did not match up, I had to explain exactly where I had been. Every extra mile needed a reason. I told myself this was normal. I told myself he was just worried about my safety. Arizona has long stretches of empty highway, and anything could happen to a woman driving alone. His concern was just love in disguise. At least that is what I believed. Our finances were completely controlled by Gerald. I earned a good salary as a nurse, but every paycheck went into our joint account. Gerald managed all the bills, all the savings, all the spending. If I wanted to buy something for myself, I had to ask. He never said no directly. He would just ask why I needed it, make me justify every purchase until it did not seem worth the trouble anymore. One afternoon, I had a rare day off from the hospital. Maggie called and asked if I wanted to meet for coffee. I hesitated, knowing Gerald would not approve, but I missed her. I missed having a friend, so I said yes. We met at a small cafe near the park. For 2 hours, I felt like my old self. Maggie made me laugh. She told me stories about the hospital, about patients and doctors, and all the drama I had been missing. I forgot about the time. I forgot about everything. Then my phone rang. It was Gerald. I panicked. I was not supposed to be here, so I lied. I told him I was at the grocery store. That night when I got home, Gerald was sitting at the kitchen table. In front of him was our bank statement. He pointed to the date and said there was no grocery purchase listed. He did not raise his voice. His tone was calm, almost gentle, which made it even more frightening. He asked why I had to lie to him. He asked what I was hiding. He asked if there was something going on that he should know about. I felt like a criminal being interrogated. I confessed that I had met Maggie for coffee. I apologized over and over. Gerald just looked at me with disappointment in his eyes. He said he was not angry. He was just hurt that I could not be honest with him. That night, I lay in bed feeling like the worst wife in the world. I had lied to my husband. I had sneaked around behind his back. The guilt was overwhelming. Maggie called a few days later. I saw her name on my phone screen, but Gerald was in the room. I could not bring myself to answer. I let it ring until it went to voicemail. Later, when I was alone, I listened to her message. She sounded worried. She said I did not seem like myself. She asked me to call her back. I never did. That Thanksgiving, my mother came to visit us. Ruth was 75 years old, then a widow living alone in Tucson. She had always been observant, always noticed things that others missed. During dinner, she watched me carefully. She noticed that I looked at Gerald before answering any question, as if asking for permission. She noticed that I jumped every time my phone buzzed. She noticed that I had become a shadow of the woman she raised. After dinner, while Gerald was watching football in the living room, my mother pulled me aside. She asked if I was okay. She asked if Gerald was treating me well. She asked why I seemed so nervous. I told her everything was fine. I told her she was imagining things. I told her I was just tired. My mother looked at me for a long moment. Then she said something I will never forget. She said that my father, God rest his soul, never once told her she could not see her friends. He never questioned where she went or who she talked to. That was not what love looked like. Before I could respond, Gerald walked into the kitchen. The conversation ended abruptly. My mother went back to the living room, but her words stayed with me. After she left to go back to Tucson, Gerald commented that my mother should not interfere in our marriage. He said she did not understand how things worked between us. He said we had a good thing going, and outsiders would only cause problems. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. I wondered when seeing my friends had become a forbidden act. I wondered when I had started needing permission to live my own life. But I pushed those thoughts away. I told myself that every marriage required compromise. I told myself that Gerald just loved me in his own way. I was not ready to see the truth. 3 years ago, everything started to shift, though I did not recognize it at the time. Gerald suggested that I cut back my hours at the hospital. He said I was working too hard. He said I deserved to relax more. So I transferred to a part-time position at a small clinic nearby. Gerald wanted me home more often, and I was tired of arguing. At the clinic, I met Carolyn. She was around my age with bright eyes and an easy laugh. She had been working there for years, and she became my first new friend in a long time. Carolyn lived a completely different life than mine. She told me about weekend trips with her girlfriends. She talked about concerts she attended and restaurants she tried. Her husband encouraged her to go out and have fun. He said it was healthy for couples to have their own interests. One day, I asked her a question that seemed obvious to me. I asked if her husband did not mind her being gone so often. Carolyn looked at me strangely. She asked why he would mind. She said he trusted her. She said that was what marriage was supposed to be. That conversation haunted me for days. I started to wonder if my marriage was normal. I began to secretly research controlling relationships on my phone, clearing my browser history immediately afterward. The articles I found described patterns that felt uncomfortably familiar. Then, about 2 years ago, my sister Teresa called with terrible news. Our mother had fallen at her house and broken her hip. She needed surgery and would require weeks of recovery. I told Gerald I needed to fly to Tucson immediately. My mother needed me. Gerald refused. He said Ruth had insurance. He said the hospital would take care of her. He said there was no reason for me to drop everything and run. I could not believe what I was hearing. This was my mother. She was 76 years old and alone. She had just broken her hip. How could he expect me to stay home? For the first time in years, I pushed back. I told Gerald I was going whether he liked it or not. His face changed. His eyes went cold. He said that if I left, I should not expect a warm welcome when I returned. He said I always let my family take advantage of me. He said I needed to learn where my priorities should be. I went anyway. Those 4 days in Tucson with my mother were the most peaceful I had felt in years. I helped her prepare for surgery. I held her hand in the hospital. I stayed by her bed during her recovery. We talked about my father, about our family, about everything except Gerald. He did not call me once while I was gone, not a single time. When I returned home, the punishment began. Gerald did not speak to me for 2 weeks. He did not acknowledge my presence. He ate dinner alone. He slept on the far edge of the bed as if I were a stranger. I tried everything to make peace. I cooked his favorite meals. I cleaned the house until it sparkled. I apologized repeatedly, though I was not sure what I was apologizing for. Finally, after 2 weeks of silence, Gerald spoke. He said that the next time I defied him like that, he would not forgive me so easily. That was when I finally saw the pattern. Every time I did something without his approval, he punished me with silence. After I attended my cousin's wedding without him, after I went to the spa with Maggie years ago, after any moment when I dared to be my own person. I saw it all clearly now, but seeing the truth and acting on it were two very different things. That night, I locked myself in the bathroom and cried silently. I looked in the mirror and did not recognize the woman staring back at me. The confident, joyful person I used to be had disappeared somewhere along the way. I wondered if it was too late to find her again. The night that changed everything happened just a few weeks ago. It was a Saturday. Maggie called with exciting news. One of our friends from our nursing days was turning 60. There was going to be a small party at her house, just a gathering of old colleagues. Maggie begged me to come. She said everyone missed me. She said it would be like old times. I knew I should not go. I knew Gerald would not approve. But something inside me stirred something that had been dormant for too long. I wanted to see my friends. I wanted to feel like myself again, even if just for one evening. I decided to tell Gerald. I thought maybe, just maybe, if I explained how important this was to me, he would understand. I was wrong. Gerald dismissed the idea immediately. He said I did not need to go. He said those women were not real friends. They had not been part of my life for years. Why would I want to reconnect with them? Now I tried to reason with him. I said it was just one evening. I said I would be home by 9 o'clock. Gerald shook his head. He said he did not trust my friends, especially Maggie. He said she was a bad influence. He said I always came back different after spending time with her. For a moment, I almost gave in. 28 years of conditioning told me to back down to keep the peace, to avoid the silent treatment that would inevitably follow. But something snapped inside me that day. Maybe it was the memory of my mother's words. Maybe it was Carolyn's baffled expression when I asked about her husband. Maybe I was just tired. I told Gerald I was going to the party. I told him I would be home before 9. Then I walked out the door. At the party, I felt alive for the first time in years. I hugged friends I had not seen in over a decade. We shared stories and memories. We laughed until our stomachs hurt. For a few precious hours, I was not Gerald's wife. I was just Kathy, the Kathy I used to be. Maggie watched me all evening with concern in her eyes. At one point, she pulled me aside and asked why I never came out anymore. She asked what had happened to me. She said I had changed so much over the years. I did not know how to answer. I did not have the words to explain 28 years of slow erosion. The party went later than I expected. By the time I looked at my watch, it was already past 10. I had promised to be home by 9. My heart started racing as I drove home. The closer I got, the more my hands trembled on the steering wheel. By the time I pulled into the driveway, I was shaking. Gerald was waiting at the door. He did not shout. Gerald never shouted. His voice was low and controlled, which made his words cut even deeper. He asked where I had been. He asked why I was so late. He asked if I thought I could just come and go as I pleased. I tried to explain about the party, about losing track of time. He cut me off. His next words burned themselves into my memory forever. He said I had no right to go out without his permission. He said I was his wife. He said he did not trust my friends. He said he especially did not trust Maggie. He demanded to know what I had really been doing all evening. I stood in my own living room, frozen. This was the man I had married, the man I had given almost 30 years of my life to. And he was telling me I had no rights. Something broke inside me at that moment. Or maybe something finally healed. Gerald went to bed after his lecture as if the matter was settled, as if he had put me in my place and everything would go back to normal. But I did not follow him upstairs. I sat in the kitchen alone in the dark thinking about my life. I thought about 28 years of asking permission, 28 years of explanations and justifications, 28 years of lost friendships and missed opportunities, 28 years of becoming smaller and smaller until I almost disappeared. I thought about my mother, who had almost died alone because Gerald did not think I should go to her. I thought about Teresa, who barely knew me anymore. I thought about Maggie, who had never given up on me, even when I had given up on myself. I thought about the passport in our filing cabinet. I had renewed it 5 years ago, thinking we might travel someday. We never did. Gerald said international travel was too complicated. At 2 in the morning, I made a decision. It came suddenly like a light switching on in a dark room. If not now, then when I went upstairs quietly. Gerald was snoring completely unaware. I opened the filing cabinet and took out my passport. Then I went to our closet and pulled out a small suitcase. I had been secretly setting aside cash for 3 years, small amounts here and there whenever I could. It was not much, but it was enough. I packed quickly, taking only what I needed: clothes, toiletries, my passport, my wallet, a photo of my mother. Then I sat down at the kitchen table and wrote a letter. The words came easily, as if they had been waiting inside me for decades. I wrote that Gerald had told me I had no right to go out without his permission. I wrote that he was wrong. I wrote that I had every right, and I was using that right now. I told him not to look for me. I placed the letter on the kitchen table where he would see it in the morning. At 3:30, I walked out to my car. I did not look back at the house. I did not hesitate. I started the engine and drove away. My destination was San Diego, where Teresa had been waiting for this moment longer than I knew. The highway stretched before me empty and dark. I drove in complete silence. No radio, no music, just the sound of the road and my own breathing. With every mile that passed, I felt something lifting. Every minute that ticked by was a minute further from the life I was leaving behind. Every breath felt cleaner, freer, more my own. For the first time in almost 30 years, I felt truly at peace. I arrived in San Diego just after 9 in the morning. Teresa was waiting for me at her front door. When she saw me step out of the car, she did not say a word. She just opened her arms and held me. I broke down completely. Tears I had been holding back for years came pouring out. Teresa stroked my hair and told me I was safe. She told me I was home. She told me everything would be okay. She had already prepared a room for me, a small guest bedroom with fresh sheets and a vase of flowers on the nightstand. She said I could stay as long as I needed, forever if I wanted. That first day, I slept for 14 hours straight. It was the deepest, most restful sleep I had experienced in decades. When I woke up, the sun was setting over the ocean outside my window, and for a moment I forgot where I was. Then I remembered, and I smiled. Back in Phoenix, Gerald woke up around 7 that morning. I know this because of what happened next. My phone, which I had kept on silent, showed dozens of missed calls and messages by the time I checked it. The first messages were demanding. Gerald wanted to know where I was. He ordered me to come home immediately. He said we needed to talk. The next messages became angrier. He accused me of being dramatic. He said I was overreacting. He said I could not just leave like this. Then the messages shifted again, becoming almost threatening. He said if I did not come back, he would report me as a missing person. He said he would call the police. I responded with one message only. I told him I was not missing. I told him I had chosen to leave. I told him not to contact me again. Then I put my phone down and went back to sleep. Over the next few days, Gerald tried everything to reach me. He called Teresa, who refused to tell him where I was. He sent emails, long rambling messages alternating between apologies and accusations. He promised he would change. He threatened to make the divorce difficult. Gerald's brother Derek called me trying to play peacemaker. He said Gerald was devastated. He said I should come home and talk things through like adults. He said every marriage had problems. I listened politely. Then I told Derek I had nothing more to say to anyone in his family. I wished him well and hung up. By the end of that first week, Maggie flew down to San Diego to see me. She showed up at Teresa's door with flowers and a bottle of wine and tears streaming down her face. She hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. She said she had been waiting for this day for 20 years. She said she had watched me disappear piece by piece into that marriage, and she had been afraid I would never come back. That night, the three of us sat on Teresa's balcony overlooking the ocean. We drank wine and talked until the stars came out. I told them everything, all the years of control, all the times I had been punished for wanting to live my own life, all the ways I had convinced myself it was normal. Maggie and Teresa listened without judgment. They cried with me. They held my hands. They told me I was the bravest person they knew. Maggie said something that stuck with me. She said I was not weak for staying so long. She said I was strong for finally leaving. That night after they went to bed, I stood on the balcony alone. The ocean breeze was cool and salty. My phone buzzed with another message from Gerald. This one said he would change. He begged for another chance. I looked at the message for a long moment. Then I did something I had never done before. I blocked his number. My finger did not tremble. My heart did not waver. I pressed the button and watched his name disappear from my screen. It felt like cutting the last rope that bound me to a sinking ship. The weeks that followed were a mix of practical matters and emotional healing. Teresa helped me find a good divorce lawyer in Arizona. The lawyer explained that after 28 years of marriage, I had rights to a fair division of assets. Gerald could threaten all he wanted, but the law was on my side. I opened my own bank account for the first time in nearly 3 decades. I stood at the teller's window and felt like a teenager opening her first savings account. But this time, the feeling was different. This time, it meant freedom. I called the clinic in Phoenix and resigned from my position. The supervisor was surprised but kind. She wished me well and said they would miss me. I thanked her for everything and said goodbye to that chapter of my life. Dr. Nathan Webb was a psychologist that Teresa recommended. He specialized in helping people recover from controlling relationships. My first session with him was difficult. I cried through most of it, but I also felt a weight lifting off my shoulders with every word I spoke. Dr. Webb helped me understand what had happened to me. He explained trauma bonding, the psychological process that keeps people attached to their abusers. He told me that my brain had been conditioned over decades to accept Gerald's behavior as normal. It was not my fault. I was not stupid or weak. I had been systematically manipulated by someone I trusted. Those words changed everything. Gerald continued trying to reach me through email since his phone number was blocked. His messages followed a predictable pattern. First came the apologies and promises to change. Then came the accusations that I was being influenced by my sister and Maggie. Finally came the threats about the divorce proceedings. He even called my mother, trying to turn her against me. He told Ruth that I was going through some kind of crisis. He said my friends were filling my head with lies. He said he just wanted his wife back. Ruth listened to him politely. Then she called me. Her first question was simple. She asked what had really been going on in my marriage. I told her the truth. All of it. The control, the monitoring, the silent punishments, the way I had slowly lost myself over the years. My mother was quiet for a long time after I finished. Then she said 4 words I will never forget. She said I did the right thing. She said she had suspected something was wrong for years, but did not want to push. She said she blamed herself for not speaking up sooner. She said she was proud of me for finding the courage to leave. After that call, Gerald lost his last potential ally. My mother told him firmly that she supported my decision. She told him not to call her again. His lawyer eventually contacted mine. Gerald was furious that he would have to divide assets fairly. He dragged his feet on every decision. He made the process as difficult as possible. I refused to be intimidated. I had spent 28 years being controlled. I was done. In the end, Gerald agreed to a settlement to avoid going to court. He did not want the details of our marriage becoming public record. He did not want people knowing how he had treated his wife. 6 months after I left Phoenix, the divorce was finalized. I signed the papers without a single tear. I felt nothing but relief. With my share of the settlement, I rented a small apartment near the ocean in San Diego. It was tiny compared to the house I had left behind, but it was mine. Every corner, every shelf, every inch of space belonged to me alone. I found a job at a local hospital, returning to full-time nursing. My colleagues welcomed me warmly. They did not know my history, and I did not share it right away. I was just Kathy, the new nurse on the floor, and that was enough. I joined a support group for women who had left controlling relationships. Meeting others who understood what I had been through made me feel less alone. We shared our stories. We celebrated each other's victories. We held each other up during difficult days. Slowly, I started reclaiming the life Gerald had taken from me. I went to yoga classes. I learned to cook dishes I had always wanted to try. I went to the movies by myself. I stayed out late with new friends without checking my watch every 5 minutes. Maggie kept her promise to visit every month. Teresa became more than my sister. She became my best friend. The bonds that Gerald had tried to sever grew stronger than ever. One morning, I walked to a coffee shop near the beach. I sat at a table by the window, ordered a latte, and opened a book I had been meaning to read for years. No one asked where I was. No one demanded to know when I would be home. No one monitored how long I stayed. I sat there for 3 hours reading and watching the waves, and I realized I was happy. It has been a year since I drove away from Phoenix in the middle of the night. A lot has changed in that time. I have changed. The sessions with Dr. Webb helped me understand not just what happened, but why I let it happen for so long. I learned about the subtle ways the abusers isolate their victims. I learned how control can be disguised as love and concern. I learned that the shame I felt was not mine to carry. I began writing in a journal every day. I faced memories I had buried for years. Some days were harder than others. Some nights, I still woke up anxious, reaching for my phone to check if Gerald was calling. Then I remembered that his number was blocked, that he had no power over me anymore, and I could breathe again. I forgave myself for not seeing the truth sooner. That was the hardest part. I had spent so many years being angry at myself for staying. Dr. Webb helped me understand that I did the best I could with the information I had at the time. I was not a fool. I was a victim of a very skilled manipulator. My mother, Ruth, came to visit me in San Diego last spring. At 78, she is still sharp as a tack. We spent a whole week together walking along the beach, cooking meals in my little kitchen, talking about everything and nothing. One evening, she held my hands and looked at me with tears in her eyes. She said I looked like myself again. She said she had missed me, not the person I had become with Gerald, but the real me, the one she raised. I cried too, but they were happy tears. I made new friends in San Diego. Helen is someone I met at the support group. She left her own controlling marriage 5 years ago. She understands everything without me having to explain. We go hiking together on weekends, exploring trails along the coast, talking and laughing and enjoying our freedom. Helen told me something important once. She said life after leaving is not perfect. There are hard days. There are moments of loneliness. But every difficult moment is still better than the best day in a bad marriage. Because at least these struggles are your own. They are not inflicted by someone who claims to love you. I think about Gerald sometimes. Not with anger, not anymore. Anger takes too much energy, and I need all my energy for living. I have come to understand that Gerald was broken in ways that had nothing to do with me. His need to control came from somewhere deep inside him, from fears and insecurities I could never fix. I was not responsible for healing him. I was only responsible for saving myself. And that is exactly what I did. Maggie and I are planning a trip to Europe this fall. We have been talking about it for months, looking at pictures of Paris and Rome and Barcelona. Gerald always said international travel was too complicated. He said we did not need to leave the country. There was plenty to see in America. Now I understand that he was afraid that if I saw the world, I might realize how small the cage he had built for me really was. Well, I see it now, and the world is even bigger and more beautiful than I imagined. Teresa and I are closer than we have ever been. We talk every day. We share everything. She helped me rebuild my life, and I will be grateful to her forever. I do not hate Gerald. Hatred would mean he still has power over me. Instead, I feel something like pity. He is alone now in that big house in Phoenix. His brother Derek told Teresa that Gerald has not dated anyone since I left. He sits in his empty house with his empty rules and his empty control. I hope someday he gets help. I hope he learns to have a relationship based on trust instead of fear. But that is not my problem anymore. My only job is to keep moving forward. This morning, I stood in front of the mirror in my little apartment by the ocean. I looked at the woman staring back at me. She is 55, now a year older than when this story began. There are more lines on her face, more gray in her hair. But her eyes are different. They are clear and calm and full of light. The confident, joyful person I thought I had lost forever is coming back. Every day she becomes more visible. Every day I recognize her a little more. I think about that night a year ago when I sat in my kitchen at 2 a.m. and made the decision that changed everything. I think about how scared I was, how uncertain, how alone. If I could go back and talk to that woman, I would tell her she was doing the right thing. I would tell her the road ahead would be hard, but worth it. I would tell her that freedom was waiting on the other side. If you are watching this video and any part of my story sounds familiar, I want you to know something important. You deserve better. If you are in a relationship where you have to ask permission to live your own life, that is not love. If someone monitors your movements and questions your friendships and punishes you with silence when you disobey, that is not caring. That is control. You have the right to go out. You have the right to have friends. You have the right to visit your mother when she is sick. You have the right to stay late at a party without explaining yourself. You have the right to be a complete human being. And if the person you are with does not give you those rights, then maybe it is time to take your passport and leave. I am not saying it will be easy. Leaving is the hardest thing I have ever done. There were moments when I doubted myself, when I wondered if I had made a terrible mistake. But those moments passed, and what remained was freedom. My life is not perfect now. I have lonely nights. I have moments of fear. Sometimes I wake up and cannot believe I actually did it. Sometimes I cry for the years I lost. But every single day, even the hard ones, is better than the best day in that cage. Because this life is mine. I chose it. I live it. No one tells me what I can or cannot do. That is worth everything. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been in a relationship where you felt controlled? Have you ever had to make a decision in the middle of the night that changed your whole life? Please share your story in the comments below. You are not alone. There are so many of us who understand. If this video touched you, please hit that like button. It helps more people find this story. And if you have not already, please subscribe to this channel so you will not miss future videos like this one. Share this with someone who might need to hear it. You never know whose life you might change by passing along these words. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here with me. I wish you peace. I wish you freedom. I wish you the courage to choose yourself, because you are worth it. You have always been worth it. And if you ever find yourself standing at a crossroads, wondering if you should stay or go, remember my story. Remember that there is life on the other side. Remember that you have every right to reach out and grab it. Take your passport. Walk out the door. Do not look back. Your new life is waiting.